Mr. President, this council now resumes on the debate of the motion of thanks. Dr. So Chang-Wing. President, I speak to support the motion of thanks. I thank the Chief Executive for meeting the aspiration of the public and deliver a pragmatic policy address. I support the two characteristics of the policy address. One, in the spirit of building our strengths and eliminating our weakness, innovative measures have been delivered. On the basis of the previous successful policy addresses, the Chief Executive has enhanced the consistency of the policy address and make the policies more flexible. For instance, in terms of housing policy, the total public housing supply for the next 5 years has been increased by 80% compared with the estimation when the Chief Executive first came into office to 189,000 public housing units. The courage to achieve this breakthrough is based on the past successes of this term of the government. From the waiting time of 6.1 years, the waiting time for public housing units has been reduced to 4.5 years in year 2026 and 27. Now, by enhancing the housing ladder, it offers better security for the people. It is a great breakthrough. Given the fiscal positions of the government, it highlights how the government is determined to rise up to people's aspiration. Now, by reforming the SDU markets, up to standard units will be renamed as basic housing units. It gives us hope for eradication of substandard SDUs. Also, the Wealth and Stock Connect schemes will be deepened. There are also proposals to build a gold trading market and a commodity trading ecosystem. It highlights our complementary strength in these aspects. Now, these are pragmatic and innovative reform measures. In terms of security developments, improving livelihood, and financial developments, the policy address offers a comprehensive set of solutions. It highlights the determination of the Chief Executive to reform for enhancing developments and to build our future together. It is a policy address of wisdom and vitality. The high quality of this policy address owes its thanks to adequate effort in study as well as the government's humility in listening to the public's views. Most of my suggestions have been taken on board by the government. I thank the government for listening to my suggestions during the consultation process to make good use of Hong Kong's unique coastal resources, to enhance our marine economy and build up our coastal tourism attractions. I suggest that the government should create synergy between the coastal resources and our tourism sector. It will enhance our city's image and bring about comprehensive developments to our economy. These are all included in the policy address. Now, these new policy breakthroughs echoes the speech made by Director Xia Baolong. He said we need to think of ways to speed up the upgrading of our tourism sector and make good use of Hong Kong's 1,180 kilometers of coastline and 263 islands. It is in line with Director Xi's call for building Hong Kong as our home and consolidating our traditional strengths. In terms of consolidating our status as an international city, we have a long and rich coastline. The water quality is great. It enjoys close proximity and connectivity with our harbor. A coastline is easily accessible by the public and visitors. They have great potential to create synergistic developments with sports, cultural tourism, and other segments of the economy. I urge the government to give full play to the appeal of our coastline. The government must take the lead to offer holistic steering and coordination to develop the coastline. The private sector and the public in general should be involved in elevating the status of our coastal development strategy to conservation. We should enhance our current uses of our coastal resources. We have to conduct a rethink on how to develop our coastline as an industry tailored to our local conditions. There should be more elements with unique Hong Kong characteristic. We need to enhance our cityscape and create synergy between our coastline and the urban areas so that it can become one of our major growth engines. Now we are proud of our harbors, but there are some regrets. Now the two projects in West Kowloon and another location are the landmarks of our coastal culture. There is great potential for them. However, because of a lack of coordination, there was a lack of supporting facilities and lack of transportation to the areas. The huge investments into the two projects were undermined by the lack of connectivity. As a result, the economic benefits was limited. Now, I have two suggestions. First, the government must establish a high-level steering committee to ensure that the developments of the projects are coordinated. And also, riding on the upcoming 15 five-year plan of the country, the government must take the initiative to obtain policy support from the national level. And concerning the connectivity of land, sea, and air, we need to obtain the national government's support. Now, Hong Kong enjoys a high level of synergy between our natural resources and our urban resources. We can become a demonstration zone. Now, with the connectivity with the world under one country, two systems, we can position ourselves differently from other mainland cities under the 15 five-year plan. Now, by aligning with the national development strategy, we can ensure that our policies are efficient. And we can ensure that coastal resources can ensure sustainable growth in Hong Kong. I so submit to support the 2024 policy address. Mr. Peter Shield. Thank you, President. Now, I will speak on all four sessions together. This year's policy address theme is reform for enhancing development and building our future together. It offers short, medium, and long-term policies on developing the economy, improving livelihood, and improving governance of the government. It is very holistic, and the government has taken on board many suggestions made by My Trade and the Liberal Party. I thank the government for that. Now, in terms of economic reform and development, there are a lot of measures. The word reform appears 41 times in the policy address. It highlights the spirits of the policy address, which echoes the resolution of the 20th CPC Central Committee meeting, that is deepening reform comprehensively. Now, in October, when central ministries met together to learn the spirit of the third plenary session, President Xi gave an important speech. Allow me to share 2 paragraphs of his speech with you. President Xi mentioned that reform is a structural project. We need to understand the relationship between every component. We have to ensure that rule of law and reform are working together. We need to deepen reform in the legal sector and improve the rule of law system with Chinese characteristic. We need to remove resistance on the path of reform. By adopting a rule of law mindset, we need to ensure that reform conducted are lawful and are beneficial to upholding the legal rights of people and companies. The second paragraph, we need to pay heed to the objective circumstances in society. We have to ensure that all reform measures are working in harmony. There must be consistency. We need to establish a comprehensive responsibility chain. We have to ensure that responsibilities are being held and ensure that the reform measures are implemented. Now, there are many reforms in the policy address. One of the key measures is to enhance the governance capability of the civil service. The civil service is the mainstay of Hong Kong society. Now, larger reform measures include changing the civil service code. In smaller areas, I think every civil servant can conduct their own reform and put forward their ideas in their frontline work. So enhancing the governance capability of the civil service is key. We need to encourage and incentivize civil servants to reform themselves. Now, one of the incentives is to offer promotion prospects in their career. In the past, civil servants' promotion is based on their length of service. I think we have to change that. Now, some people think that their job is very safe, even if they don't conduct reform. We have to change this mindset. Now, there are a lot of conflicting interests in terms of reforms. For example, when the streamlining of the three tunnels were introduced, there were a lot of resistance. Now, this time, the rationalizing of the traffic flow of the 3 tunnels have been implemented. Now we can see that the traffic in Hong Kong has been improved significantly. There are empirical data supporting the rationalizing arrangements. Now we need to insist in what must be reformed and convince others with scientific data. For those which do not have to be changed, we should keep them intact. Now, for example, for liquor duty, for liquor products valued at $200 or above, and there is a 10% reduction in the duty rate. I think that would encourage liquor trade. But there are concerns among the more healthy-minded people. Now, if we don't see a significant deterioration in the public's health, can we extend the reduction? We have to follow this up.
Go. Director Xia Baolong from the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office met with Hong Kong's business leaders at the seminar earlier. Director Xia proposed a number of points. He argued we cannot bank on a single trick. We must break new ground given the changing circumstances. Director Xia's main thrust is reflected in different parts of the policy address. Now, building Hong Kong together requires that we all stick with Hong Kong. We strengthen our existing strength. Director Xia's second point, explore new forms of business, new industries, so that we find new growth drivers for Hong Kong. In the policy address, it's about strengthening our status as an international financial, shipping, and trade center, as well as an aviation hub. We expand our logistics park. Those are our conventional industries. Strengthening these industries matters. We must build on our strength. Other members have commented on our air transport. Mr. Frankie Yik from the transport sector shared his insights, so I won't repeat those points. So, how do we go about developing new industries? Director Xia reminded us to embrace changes. Let's not just bank on the old formula. I'm from the retail sector. The data in the recent months point to a struggling sector. My friend in the sector asked me what to do. Let's recognize the new situation. 80% of our inbound visitors came from the mainland. Our business relies on mainland visitors apart from local consumers. But now there's a shift in the consumption pattern of these visitors. E-commerce is all the rage these days. Local residents are glad to head north for dining and shopping. So that means new challenges for the local retail sector. That's why I said to my friend, let's recognize the new situation. We had the IVS, many mainland visitors came here. But now, mainland visitors have way more options to spend their money. We need to be clear about the new situation. Let's use technology so that our goods are sold not just locally. Let's create our own brand. Let's use the online platform and promote our products elsewhere. So we should recognize this new market condition. Innovation and technology hold the future of Hong Kong. That's why we should work on it. Creating a new I&D center, driving a digital economy, and the HSITP in the loop are our priorities. They will be where our future economic growth will come from. So let's all work on them. On tourism, the Liberal Party has called for effort on island tourism. We have 263 islands. Let's make the most of them. Let's draw more visitors, not just from the mainland, but also look at the emerging markets from Southeast Asia and the Middle East. Let's bring those visitors here. And when they're here, we need the halal food certification. Director Xia's third point, support for the ACR government in implementing long-term plans so that we find new room for growth. We should all stick to our corporate social responsibility and contribute to people's well-being. The Northern Metropolis will be a key growth engine for our economy. To get the NM off the ground, we need effort from all sectors. This includes people sitting on land and capital. At the seminar, Director Xia mentioned the letter from Mr. Xi to Hong Kong entrepreneurs coming from or hailing from Ningbo. Those entrepreneurs put in money and attention to our country's development. Turning back to our northern metropolis, some business leaders have worries given geopolitics. The world's economic gravity is shifting to the east. Look at the BRICS countries. Their GDP makes up a third of the world's economic output. G7 is only at 29%. Let's have faith in our country and in our city. Let's invest in the northern metropolis. You will see a handsome return. And that will also mean a lot for Hong Kong's well-being. Director Xia's fifth and sixth points: patriotism, telling good stories of Hong Kong, improving Hong Kong's international image, supporting our country's strategy, helping Hong Kong integrate international development. The GBA is a priority. Let's all make the most of the manpower in the GBA. Many people from the rest of the GBA can come here. So let's use our capital, leverage our unique strength, make the most of our global connections, bring our professional expertise to the rest of the GBA. That's the expectation of our country under the 14th Five-Year Plan. Let's keep working at it. I believe the government will deliver on this. Now, Director Xiao's last point: turning Hong Kong into a hub for top-notch international talent. I know the government has been working hard. A news report just came out. Mr. Ronnie O'Sullivan came to Hong Kong. This has been reported extensively. I want to share something. This May, a friend of mine called me. He wanted to see more mega events. My friend is on good terms with Mr. O'Sullivan. He would like to see a match featuring Mr. O'Sullivan, so I reached out to Mr. Kevin Yeung, the SCST, and Mr. Yeung helped me to get in touch with Mr. Wong Tak-sum, the Commissioner for Sport. And then my friend, with another friend from the Snookers Association, said, another place invited Mr. O'Sullivan to move to that place instead. Mr. Johnny stressed attracting talent, so I said, why not invite Mr. O'Sullivan here instead? We have talent admission schemes, and I know Mr. O'Sullivan is a big fan of hiking. So my friend worked really hard to persuade Mr. O'Sullivan, and the other friend also reached out to the Director of Immigration, and Mr. Benson Kwok reached out to Mr. O'Sullivan time and again to tell Mr. O'Sullivan about our strength. Finally, we won Mr. O'Sullivan over. So the Director of Immigration went that extra mile. It wasn't just about approving a visa. We can all be dedicated to our tasks. The same goes for the general public. You see great talent, great businesses. Tell our stories well. Get those people and businesses to come here. Let's all work together. And that will help Hong Kong go forward. Mr. Brave Chan, thank you. I want to discuss culture, sports, tourism, and also economic diversification so that we can achieve greater, faster, and better economical results. Our government's policy is to shape tourism through cultural activities and promoting culture through tourism. Now we also want tourism everywhere. But that's not to say we'll put a panda everywhere in Hong Kong. The point instead is to have the benefits applied to different parts of Hong Kong. And there's also a stress on INT. The PA this year stresses cultural confidence, a new tourism landscape, panda tourism, among others. My point is, let's turn these policies into benefits for different sectors and the wider public. So, our proposal is to have an all-encompassing integrated approach to tourism. So pandas are a place to start. In Hong Kong, in Chengdu, and even in Korea, pandas have generated immense economic benefit. There's an entire industry chain. So this panda-centric economic chain matters. Pandas are our country's national treasure. We have this intellectual property right. We can realize the vast economic benefit. We can have cultural and creative products based on pandas. On either side of the Victoria Harbour, we can have theme parks based on pandas. We have the Commissioner of Tourism here. We have the SCST. I know they're working on this, but let's go faster. Now, I know the work is going on about panda-centric IP so that we make the most of the pandas. Now, we can also do tourism based on the War of Resistance, and we can also have patriotic education based on that. Let's build up our capacity. Now, blue tourism, green tourism, and tourism based on buying and trading of gold, precious metals, and also heritage tourism are also options we should consider. We shouldn't just stand idly by, we should get actively involved. The policy address covers so much ground, and for us, let's turn these policies into reality with greater speed, efficiency, and greater outcome for everyone. Thank you. Ms. Doreen Kong. I want to focus on two issues close to people's hearts, housing and tourism. The policy address proposes basic housing units. This shows the government is not shying away from subdivided units. The government's plan is to set out minimum standards for SDUs through legislation. We need professional expertise involved to tackle this problem. France offers a model to learn from. Once the plan about BHUs came out, I got concerns from many SDU residents. They worry about rising rents and fewer SDUs. These concerns are valid. So for the government, it needs to consider these concerns. You need the legislation to balance different interests and effective delivery. I hope the government can duly consider the power dynamics between landlords and tenants. Let's make use of big data and technology. We need accurate data on the number of SDUs, substandard SDUs that is, and also the demographics of SDU tenants. Let's find out why people live in SDUs. Let's also tally data, and then we assess them before we go ahead with legislation. Let's also assess whether the market can provide enough BHUs without enough data, and if we rush, that will mean needless disruption in people's lives.
The government should listen to the views of stakeholders in addressing land and housing issues. The government should collect sufficient data to tackle the problem squarely. It's been 10 years since the launch of the long-term housing strategy. The government should conduct a review on the way forward for addressing housing issues. The government should have regard to the demographic changes and our integration into Greater Bay Area, and as well as economic development. Suitable adjustments should be put in place. Now, the public and I are concerned about the development of the tourism industry, not only because of how much money this industry could generate, but also the direct and indirect benefits that could be brought about by tourism, as well as our international profile. Last year, it was the end of the pandemic. Members of the public were concerned about tourism figures. However, in the past few months, whenever I visited tourist spots in Hong Kong, I saw crowds, and I heard from the sector that it has become more difficult to have a hotel booking because the rooms are full. Now, this is the new landscape for tourism in Hong Kong. The government bureaus should explore the upgrading of tourism hardware. We should make better use of the coast, waterfront along Victoria Harbour, like New York and Istanbul. They optimize and maximize the use of their water bodies in order to create a tourism hub. I published an article in the newspaper about this point. We should create a new landscape for tourism industry. I'm happy to know that the chief executive has accepted my suggestions in his policy address. This will be the direction for us. After the pandemic, competition is keen, and as such, we are under a lot of pressure in the face of competitors. We've continued to give suggestions to the government on promoting tourism. I believe the Culture, Sports and Tourism Bureau understands where we're coming from. We are committed to showing the charm and uniqueness of Hong Kong to the world. Mr. Starry LEE. Thank you, President. This is the first time I speak on the motion of thanks. I support the motion. The third plenary session of the 20th CPC Central Committee puts forward further deepening reform comprehensively. And this year, the policy address's theme is enhancing reform for enhancing development and building our future together. And I fully support that. And I'd like to speak on enhancing tourism infrastructure, developing hotspots, and developing the countryside. Now, recently, Mr. Shah spoke at a symposium when he met business leaders in Hong Kong. He said that we should make good use of 1,180 kilometers of coastline and 286 islands in Hong Kong, and that in light of actual situations in Hong Kong, develop the well-being tourism, eco-tourism, and cruise tourism. On developing tourist hotspots, I'd like to talk about Sai Kung. This is my constituency. I understand that the government will be taking forward the improvement works of Sai Kung Hiram Highway Phase 2. This will provide the solid foundation for developing Sai Kung into a hotspot. The government advocates tourism with characteristics. There is a lot of potential for Sai Kung, in other words. Sai Kung is situated within the geopark, so there is potential to take it further. We should foster greater collaboration with the geoparks in the mainland so as to create synergy. Collaboration means sharing of resources, sharing of experience, so that the joint effort can be made to build an alliance of geopark with influence, so that the world will know more about the rich geological resources that we have. So it's for Mr. Kevin Yang to think about the collaboration between geoparks. The UNESCO Geopark in Zhangjiajie comes with different attractions such as zip line and other adventure activities. And these activities enrich tourist experience. We can make reference to this approach for Hong Kong so as to develop more tourism products and attract different types of visitors. Take another example. In another geopark, the geological conditions as well as the history and heritage of the place are promoted to tourists, so that whilst tourists enjoy the scenery, they can also have a taste of the culture and the people there. It raises the cultural value of the spot. For the geopark in Sai Kung, it comes with a rich history and unique culture as well. The government should dig deeper so as to develop the resources, so as to develop unique tourist route itineraries and products. And recently, a piece of dinosaur fossil was discovered in Sai Kung. We should leverage on this opportunity so as to attract more people to go to Sai Kung and learn more about Sai Kung. On transport infrastructure, in Area 137 of Tseung Kwan O, the government will be building 50,000 units, housing 130,000 people. That's two-thirds of the population of Ma On Shan. In the face of the surge of district population, the government should continue to take an infrastructure-led approach. The existing railway lines may not be able to cope with the commuting needs of the increasing population. The government should be visionary and plan ahead. Area 137 and Lohas Park of Tseung Kwan O should be connected to Hong Kong Island. A study should be conducted as quickly as possible. The government should also consider building the fourth Cross Harbour Tunnel so as to get ready for the increase in this Tseung Kwan O population. Now, the government has fine-tuned the proposals for Area 132 and 137 of Tseung Kwan O. The marine refuse station proposal has been shelved. There will be some distance from the residential neighborhood. I hope the government can take it further. The government should explore other feasible options so as to strike a balance between different factors, such as conservation of the environment, development, as well as the well-being of residents. There are good stories in Hong Kong to tell. We have stories about our gourmet. We also have a lot of natural scenery on offer. The government should tap these resources so as to implement the concept of tourism is everywhere and attract tourists from around the world to come. Mr. Tommy Zhang. Thank you, President. In this session, I'd like to speak on a number of issues. First, halal food certification. The chief executive mentioned in his policy address this innovative concept of tapping new visitor source markets in the Middle East and ASEAN countries. We're in strong support of this idea. We believe this can drive the development of not only the tourism industry but also hotel and retail and F&B sectors. There will be new opportunities for us. In the beginning of this year, as my business involved inviting officials and businessmen from Malaysia to come, I found that there were few halal restaurants in Hong Kong, and we had to wait for over an hour. I was told by this Malaysian government official that we should copy the Malaysian halal food certification system. So I called the FHKI because they are in charge of the Q-mark system, and I'm very grateful to them. As I understand, recently they've shelved the idea of copying the Malaysian halal food certification, but they're going to roll out a new system called halal-friendly business certification. So for hotels, restaurants, food processing, we can introduce this system. On education, the policy address proposes that there should be internationalization of our post-secondary education. We are the only place with 5 universities among the top 100 universities in the world. For post-secondary institutions, the non-local student quota will be raised, and depending on their own circumstances, these institutions can enroll more students from Belt and Road countries and ASEAN countries to come here. And these institutions should also enhance their capacity and quality. Now, the Liberal Party is of the view that at the secondary school level, or at least senior secondary level, we can also enroll non-local students because we have a lot of prestigious and elite schools, aided or otherwise, with boarding facilities. These non-local students can stay and be admitted into post-secondary institutions in Hong Kong as well. Likewise, we can invite the next generation of immigrants to come to Hong Kong to come back and study here. Now, earlier, I talked to some overseas Chinese, and they would like their children to be able to come back and study here. In the 60s, when I studied in my secondary school, I had some schoolmates who were Chinese of Thai nationality. So we could expand the scope to cover senior secondary schools as well. According to Carfax study, for the 150 private schools rankings, 5 of them are Hong Kong secondary schools. And these are DBS, DGS, St. Paul Secondary School, Mount Caleb School, as well as Harrow. So our secondary schools are famous. They are attractive. Next, I'd like to turn to liquor duty, or wine duty as well as liquor duty. In order to promote liquor trading, storage, and high-end tourism, F&B, the government made reference to the last exercise that happened 20 years ago when the wine duty was scrapped. It was a successful exercise. That is for liquor with import price above $200, the duty rate will be slashed from 100% to 10%, whereas for liquor with import price below $200, the rate will remain the same. In the last exercise, wine duty was slashed first from 80% to 40%, and then from 40% to none. It was done in 2 phases. The idea was floated by the Liberal Party. The success was beyond our imagination. Now, this time round, we also propose slashing the liquor duty rate. I immediately informed the F&B sector after the delivery of the policy address. I told them that they should cut the liquor selling price immediately, even if the current consignment has not benefited from the slashing of rates, because otherwise members of the public will have the feeling that they don't benefit as customers. This will boost consumption and will further help the government's policy.
In terms of tourism, the government has obtained more facilitation measures from the central government. Exit endorsement facilitation measures were obtained. For example, relaxation of the multiple entry visas and also one entry per week visa. The Liberal Party is pleased to see that the government has taken on board our suggestion to resume the multiple entry arrangements for Shenzhen residents and also suggestions to boost horse racing tourism. Back in 2023, we already proposed to the government that we should extend the multiple entry endorsements for mainland tourists so as to boost our economy, which was impacted by the epidemic. It shows that our suggestion works. Finally, the policy address also mentioned support for SMEs to deal with the challenges brought about by the transitioning. Now, I support the relaunching of the principal moratorium loaning scheme. This is what should be done by responsible government. I support the motion. Mr. Kitson Yang, thank you, President. In the past, I have been urging the government to boost the tourism sector. Now, I submitted a proposal to the government concerning forging a cultural and arts tourism strategy. This year, we have proposed a lot of suggestions to boost local characteristic tourism and concert tourism. For example, horse racing tourism, multiple entry visa, and also halal food accreditation system. We want to attract more tourists from all over the world. And also, we also made suggestions on improving the arrangements for the Kaida Cruise Terminal and other proposals. These proposals will help attracting and retaining our tourists. Now, the government has listened to our views. For example, on tour groups from Middle East and Saudi Arabia countries, as well as enhancing the multiple entry visa arrangements for Shenzhen residents, plus panda tourism, yacht tourism, and mega events tourism. These will bring new experiences to tourists. I would like to focus on yacht tourism. At present, in terms of deep cultural tourism, we are focusing on hiking and tourism into the community. Now we should turn the focus on yacht tourism. It comes with great potential. It can boost our insurance and banking sector as well. We need to forge Hong Kong into a city boasting our yacht economy. There are other characteristic tourism attractions as well. For example, religious tourism. Now, when we talk about religious tourism, what comes to mind must be Jerusalem. Of course, we can't compare with Jerusalem, but we have our own religious resources. Now, we need to showcase to tourists that we have a rich religious culture. For example, we have a lot of temples, like the Qilin Institute and also One Temple and so on. We have a very rich culture. And also we have the Great Buddha and also the Qilin Monastery. These are famous tourist attractions in Hong Kong. Now, by harnessing these resources, we can build a rich religious itinerary. We can work with the religious leaders in Hong Kong to create an itinerary and disseminate information to overseas tourists on a rich religious culture. We should also enhance religious activities held in Hong Kong. Now, last Saturday, there was a Wong Tai Sin Cultural Festival with a lot of religious leaders and religious experts holding talks in Wong Tai Sin. It attracted a lot of believers to the monastery. It would heal people's soul. Now, maybe we can repackage our religious activities like vegetarian food and so on, and sell them to the tourists. And also, we can offer badges to believers and offer online religious tours to people. Of course, we need to be creative in creating new tourism packages, but we have to inject vitality into our existing tourism packages. Now, this policy address mentioned we need to upgrade our cruise terminal into a cruise terminal with the functions of home port and MICE functions. Now, there are lots of mainland cities, including Qingdao, who would like to work with us. Now, can the government reach out to the port operators in Qingdao to forge a cruise line calling ports at Hong Kong and Qingdao so that more tourists can enjoy the two cities and promote synergistic development of the two cities? Now, the cruise terminal, the makeshift hospital near Kai Tak would be converted into a youth post. Now, by making the youth post a base for youth cultural activities and youth creations, we can attract cruise passengers to visit the youth post. Together with the Kai Tak sports parks nearby, we can boost the cruise economy in Hong Kong. Now, about Kai Tak Sports Park, we believe that after its commissioning, it will become a landmark for mega events for sports and culture in Hong Kong. This year's policy address has much mentioning on the preparation for the opening of the Kai Tak Sports Park. Drills have been conducted on emergency as well as dispersal of spectators after mega events. Now, there are still some concerns, but I think during the interim, before the commissioning, the government can sort all the transportation issues out. How can we translate Kai Tak Sports Park vitality into economic benefits? Now, nearby in Wang Tai Sin and the older areas, there are lots of characteristic products. Now, the governments can prepare pamphlets to tell tourists where they can find these characteristic products in Wang Tai Sin and Temple Street. More communication should be held with the merchants groups. Now, next year during the Rugby 7, can we organize a beer fest in Kowloon City at the same time? This can boost local economy as well as enhance the efficiency of spectator dispersal after the mega events. I so submit I support the motion. Mr. Gary Chan. Thank you, President. Housing policy is a key area in this policy address. But besides specific measures, the general philosophy of the housing policy shows that the government has listened to the public. For example, subdivided units. SDU is a product created by the relations between demand and supply in the market. Now, the government is wading into the markets by regulating the SDU markets or even eradicating substandard SDUs. The reason for that is that there is a consensus in society that the government should exercise public power to do this. So in terms of the eradication of substandard SDUs, there is a mandate for the government. Actually, many things can be resolved by negotiation. We have to remember the origin of these policy intents. If we do not remember the original intention behind the policies, we would be influenced by a lot of variables. So we need to follow that logic. There were also a lot of discussion on the change to the wealth tenant policy. It is also a test for how strong a belief we have. Now, actually, the public housing estate product is not all about fairness. It is about helping those people who are in need. The original intent of public housing estates is a product to help grassroots people to start at the bottom of the housing ladder, for them to move upward. If some tenants become wealth tenants, it means that our policy is a success. So it doesn't mean that we have to deal with or even punish wealth tenants based on the so-called principle of fairness. What's more important is to provide more incentives for these well-off tenants to move upward along the housing ladder and leave the public housing estate as a tool for helping the grassroots. We have to help them move upward along the housing ladder to the next rung. So we need to consider the housing ladder comprehensively. No matter how we draw the line for well-off tenants, we need to consider the entire housing policy as a whole. We are not punishing the well-off tenants by charging them the market rate. Now, I believe the government didn't offer public housing because they want to receive rent from the wealth tenants. Now, these seemingly punitive measures are of the intent to help the wealth tenants to move up the housing ladder. So I hope that the public will understand where this wealth tenant policy change is coming from. Northern Metropolis developments give us a lot of room to maneuver in terms of housing policy, because this area will provide a lot of housing units in the future. Now, our policy is no longer led by housing demand or supply, but rather we are adopting an industry-led approach. Now, the requirements are very different now. In the past, developments of new development areas are led by housing. We were very sure there would be a demand for housing. There will always be people waiting for an allocation of public housing units or waiting to buy a private flat. They would soak up the supply. Now, for the NDAs in the Northern Metropolis, there is a very strong industry elements in this. So the targeted user are not just ordinary people, but enterprises. Now, enterprises would rarely base the decision on ultra-long-term factors. Now, I serve the Northern Metropolis constituents. I represent the industries there. Now, I was deeply involved in the formulation of development policy in the Northern Metropolis. I think that in terms of the action agenda and the development strategy as a whole, we have been progressing rapidly over the past few years. The positioning was clear. At the beginning, we just drew 3 circles on the map. Now, we have clear positioning for the respective areas, the positioning, the development parameters, and also the linkages with the Shenzhen side. There is a clear positioning for each of them. So this is a great start. You can say that the first phase of the development has completed. The second stage is the implementation stage. Now we need to do a rethink on whether the current implementation mechanism can cope with the requirements in terms of financing, coordination, and so on. The Northern Metropolis is a comprehensive and diversified area. There is a strong industry element in this. So besides infrastructure and housing, we need to consider the other factors as well. So it is high time we conduct a rethink on the positioning and role of the Northern Metropolis Development Office in terms of approval and financing. Is the office powerful enough to cope with the developmental needs?
都要睇翻我哋
Speaking of the Northern Metropolis, let's look at our transport infrastructure blueprint. At the core of it, for the NM, we have to fix three problems. First, transport links between the NM and Shenzhen, and also the link between the NM and the harbor metropolis. The Northern Metropolis is a long strip of land, so we also have to get the transport linkage between the eastern end and the western end of the NM right. One more thing to be mindful of, I've raised this matter with our government, and that is the transport link between the NM and the airport. On the west end, there's a Hon Starry rail link from Shenzhen to the NM in Hong Kong. Journey time will be short. And then from Shanting to the loop, Shenzhen is building an intercity rail link. The trains will go all the way to the Huanggang port, so there will be a great transport link. Shenzhen just announced a new plan. From Route 11 from their airport, that rail link will be extended to the Luowu boundary control point. So, soon, along the entire Northern Metropolis, there will be great transport links. But what about the transport link between the Northern Metropolis and our own airport, especially when it comes to mass transport linkage? There's no swift, straightforward transport link from Hongshoku to Sunny Bay to Lantau. Our plan is that it has to go hand in hand with the artificial islands. But then the artificial islands are being kind of shelved or postponed. So now we lack a timetable on where this rail link will go. So apart from the Hongshoku and Qianhai rail link, can we take forward a rail link project on the west? Say in 2 or 3 years' time, let's link up Hongshoku and Sunny Bay with a railway. And then once we get a clearer sense of the timetable for Cao Yichao, we build a further section. As the Secretary for Development said, we will go ahead with the Cao Yichao artificial islands. But we simply propose starting the transport infrastructure first, and that may bring greater efficiency gains. A major challenge for our project is the cost and the construction time. That calls for new ideas in our institutions. Now, for the Northern Metropolis, can we team up with the mainland? Can we turn the Northern Metropolis into a GBA level project? And then in those projects, let's have demonstrations. Let's break new ground. We learn from the mainland. And then we achieve progress in construction time, costs, and efficiency, as well as design. So those are my thoughts on housing transport. I so submit I support the 2024 policy address. Mr. Jimmy Ng. Thank you. The policy address proposes strengthening cultural confidence, creating a new landscape for tourism, developing mega events economy, and also proposing this working group on developing tourist hotspots. These are things the industry has been calling for. Last week, Director Xiao Baolong once again called on us to make good use of our coastline and islands. For wellness tourism, cultural tourism, cruise tourism, we should all work hard on these domains. At the question session, I proposed industrial tourism, and I wondered whether that would become a kind of signature tourism. Look at the history of our industry. That shows the Lion Rock spirit and Hong Kong's culture. Industrial tourism can bring in tourists, generate income. And we can also tell the story of our entrepreneurs, and that can burnish our image. To get there, we need different sectors to come together. First, we need to come up with attractions. Many manufacturers are ready. They have repurposed their assembly lines into places tourists can visit, but that's just the first step. As a next step, we need galleries. We can build from scratch, but we can also repurpose existing industrial buildings into galleries that will provide authenticity. And for that, where possible, can we relax the rules? Of course, we always put safety first. Manufacturers are good at making things, but not promoting their things. So can we get the Hong Kong Tourism Board to help with promotion and planning itineraries? The history of our industries is good material for possibly movies, and that can promote our industries and Hong Kong. We have just had this movie about the funeral services. There is humor and there are moving parts. The best way is for the government to take the lead and rally the industry. I'm sure this sector is happy to provide the venues and offer help. I so submit. Dr. Ben Chen. I support the motion of thanks. The policy address has adopted many ideas and responded to calls from the DAB. $750 million for the new energy fund for the energy sectors, for the transport sector to buy new cars, and also a pilot scheme on subsidies for heavy goods vehicles. $300 million for a new scheme. That's for installing rapid chargers. By 2030, there will be 3,000 rapid chargers. These measures will foster our transition to new energy. The pace of adopting electric vehicles has slowed down. Out of the 18,000 taxis, we have been seeing more and more electric taxis, but these taxis remain a minority. Our goal is to have 3,000 by 2027, but we still have a long way to go. And the reason is we are short of chargers. There are 7,400 chargers across the city. Can those chargers meet the demand of the 18,000 taxis? It takes too long to have the car fully charged. We're short of rapid chargers or quick chargers. In the industry, there are people trying to build chargers, but all kinds of challenges happen, and that includes application. More support is needed to put chargers in place. Rezoning applications are one area where problems arise. The government policy is there, but there is ground-level friction despite high-level green light. So I call on the government to adopt the facilitator's mindset. I hope there can be greater support for the installation of chargers. So say in rezoning applications, let's streamline the procedures, and also let's lower the premium payable. Now, some people in the charger business told me the premium payable is an astronomical figure. That figure puts potential business people off. We need more chargers at different places, at school premises, government offices. We need massive building of chargers. On vehicle types, our choices are limited. We don't have a single EV where you can replace the battery. The main reason is that our cars are right-hand drive cars. To build these cars, EV makers will need massive investment, and that's putting them off. If we can accept left-hand drive cars in Hong Kong, that will give us more options for EVs. So we invite the government to consider our proposal. Point-to-point transport is top of mind for people, and that includes taxis. In the first quarter of this year, complaint figures reached 2,800, up 13.9% year-on-year. The quality of taxi service is top of mind for people, and that also has to do with our image in the mind of tourists. Tourists come here, the first thing they come into contact with is their taxi ride. Poor service, at that point, will affect tourists' impression of Hong Kong. That's why we have all been calling for the installation of a recorder, cameras in the taxi, recording everything that happens during a taxi ride. This will protect both the tourist and the cabbie. That way we can avoid he said, she said situations. And we can also take steps to protect privacy in the process. Just 5 to 8% of taxis now have such recorders or cameras in place. We need the relevant laws in place to protect the public and also uphold our service for tourists. The government has also helped bus operators. The bus operators have been applying for fare rises. That may not be down to greed, but simply because of the bad business environment. Bus operators complained of falling patronage levels, falling ridership. So you can see a pattern: falling ridership, more fare rise applications, and some kind of government subsidy is involved. We are slow to offer subsidies because doing that would cost more tax dollars. That's why our party has been calling for non-fare box revenue. The government has been working on this front, but the work is progressing too slowly. I hope we can relax the rules. Say around or near bus stops, can we let bus operators sell refreshments for non-fare box revenue? That's a straightforward way. Any red tape will mean lower efficiency. Now, for ferry operators, they're also struggling. These operators told me they got fewer passengers over the past 6 months. There used to be a level of passengership of 30,000 people over a weekend, but now it's down to 20,000 passengers. Demographic changes are there. Operators are struggling. So let's look at non-fare box revenue. Can we redevelop piers and add in retail and dining facilities that can help these operators? Now for piers number 4 to 6 in Central, we proposed repurposing some facilities into retail facilities. But a year has passed. I believe those operators will come here to ask for fare rises, and then we will make the same calls again about non-fare box revenue. We're laboring these points. I know challenges are there. Still, the government has to do something. Now, a new fare system is now in place at the toll plazas. Can we turn that space into something where you can generate new revenue from? Let's diversify sources of revenue for public transport operators. I invite the government to consider our ideas.
Next, tourism is everywhere. Now, we've been advocating this concept for some time together with Mr. Ngan Yu. Last month, we promoted tourism in Lei Yue Mun, and I hope we can tap collective wisdom in developing tourist hotspots. In our study, we've discovered some good tourist attractions in different districts, such as heritage and heritage buildings. Some of these buildings are not open to the public. They are at the moment closed only for storage. We should mobilize the private sector so that these facilities can be rented to private organizations to promote tourism. We inquired about the procedures. It turns out to be very cumbersome. We should remove obstacles so that it will be easy to promote tourism. And this can also help attract overnight visitors to Hong Kong. This is, after all, a major discussion. Different members have put forward the idea of developing bed and breakfast in Hong Kong. B&Bs are quite unique because of the price range. They're more affordable, in other words. For hotel rooms, many people may be deterred by the exorbitant prices. The mainland visitors may return across the boundary only to come again the following morning because of that. So the government should relax the rules for B&Bs. At the moment, they go by the hotel registration rules. At the district level, there are some interesting buildings that can be converted into bed and breakfast facilities. This can help drive local consumption. I so submit. Mr. Benson, look. President, in order to promote integrated development of culture, sports, and tourism, the policy address contains a dedicated chapter. It shows how much importance the government is attaching to this area. We need to enhance cultural confidence and promote sports development. But on top of that, our goal should be to promote integrated development of culture, sports, and tourism so as to generate value for different sectors of the community. In May this year, Mr. Xia Baolong put forward the concept of tourism is everywhere. I moved a motion on the 12th of June, that is for Hong Kong, to implement the concept of tourism is everywhere and develop mega events economy. Last Friday at the symposium, Mr. Xia also remarked that we should rake up brains to upgrade and transform the tourism industry and make good use of the 1,180 kilometers of coastline and 268 islands in order to develop tourism. So it's an issue close to his heart. Within this year, the government will be publishing the blueprint for the development of tourism industry 2.0. This blueprint 2.0 should contain policies that can generate economic value for the community. Take Hong Kong Island as an example. In relation to the 1,180 kilometers of coastline. The government is taking forward the 60-kilometer around the island trail that will connect a number of waterfront promenades on the Hong Kong island from north to south. This is the first step towards enhancing accessibility and making the city more walkable. But I think the government should think further on how we can attract visitors there. I think F&B facilities should be the focus, such as Marina Bay in Singapore. They have F&B restaurants along the coast in order to attract visitors. In Tsim Sha Tsui, we also have the Avenue of Stars along the Victoria Harbour. We propose having landing steps for water taxis in WKCD. And according to the sector, similar F&B facilities should be provided near shore. But because of land use restrictions, we remain status quo. We only had some booths and stalls along the waterfront promenade. The government should cut the red tape and optimize the use of waterfront so that apart from creating a leisure space for jogging and for photo taking, we can also generate more revenue. A new landmark will be created for the Central Harbourfront space and other sites. More events will be held. In developing the mega events economy, the government should remove hurdles as far as they can in order to make use of the 263 islands. The policy address has proposed island hopping tours and the eco corridor in South Lantau, and there are also facilities to connect to different tourist attractions in the countryside. Well, we already have a lot of activities on outlying islands. The problem is we're not linking them together and publicizing them. For example, recently an international cross-country run was held. Over 1,000 runners participated in the event. It had the support of the Hong Kong Tourism Board. The mode of tourism is changing around the world. Apart from driving spectators to watch the sports events, we also need them to participate in the events. For example, according to the China National Athletes Association's report in 2023, every year 699 outdoor runs will be held. On average, 6.5 million people took part. As for the London Marathon, 840,000 runners took part in the run. So there is a lot of potential in this market. We should run major sports events to attract participants as well as spectators. Usually, runners taking part in international marathons would stay in hotels the night before. Even for this event in Lantau, as I understand, some visitors and expatriate runners stayed in the hotels in Mui Wo, and that also drove the businesses in F&B sector. So we have different events happening in the countryside, in country parks. We can link them together. Link them up so that visitors can not only be the spectators but also the participants in these events, so that they will stay behind in Hong Kong for a few more nights. Now I turn to another issue, that's cruise tourism. That is also a new growth point, or yacht tourism. The yacht tourism or cruise tourism are mostly high-spending customers. They are overnight visitors. Apart from spending money, they also bring in business negotiation activities. International cruise tourism is a trend in other places as well, and we need to build more berths in order to develop marinas to develop this kind of tourism. I understand that for the ex-Lama Quarry site and the Aberdeen waterfront, there will be more yachting and facilities and marinas. Apart from berths, we should also look into other facilitation measures. In the long run, this can help drive the ancillary activities such as the hiring of yachts. I understand that there is strong support from the private sector. They want to look for investment opportunities as well. So I hope that the government will work on it to bring new revenue.
Does any other member wish to speak? If no member wishes to speak, I will call upon the public officers to speak. Deputy Secretary for Administration. President, in the 2024 policy address, the Chief Executive proposed to establish a number of committees and working groups. I myself will chair the working group on promoting silver economy and the working group on developing tourist hotspots to provide cross-bureau coordination on the relevant tasks. In the previous 2 days, many members have spoken on our work, and I thank their views. First, on the working group on promoting silver economy. It is expected that Hong Kong's population will continue to age. They will become a large consumer group in Hong Kong. It will boost the demand for German technology products and services. The silver economy has a wide coverage and long industry chain. There's great potential and momentum. It requires cross-bureau and cross-departmental coordination to develop the silver economy. As a result, we need high-level steering for this. Now, the working group will follow 5 directions, including offering more silver products, enhancing consumer protection, unleashing the momentum of the silver economy. Now, the first meeting was convened on the 7th of November, during which preliminary directions were set for various bureaus. As the leader, I have requested bureaus and departments to include and enhance measures for supporting the silver economy under their work portfolios. Members have put forward views on developing the silver economy, including conducting a study on the consumption power and demand of elderly people, and also developing products under German technology, especially products which alerts elderly people against scams. On promotion of silver financial and security arrangements, members mentioned that we should conduct a review on the insurance product for elderly people, enhancing financial protection for elderly people, as well as innovative investment tools for the silver population. There should be a bank dedicated to the silver population to offer the free tools of retirement for the elderly people. Now, there should also be incentives to encourage participation in the labor force by the silver population. These are all very interesting ideas. We will explore these views. In the next few months, relevant bureaus will formulate work plans in their portfolios. Our target is to formulate a plan to implement projects by the first quarter of next year. On the working group on developing tourist hotspots, we have characteristic tourism resources, for example, cuisines, lifestyle and fashion items, historical buildings, clansman culture, film and arts performances, and so on. They have great potential to give birth to tourist hotspots. The first meeting was held on the 8th of November, and prerequisites of tourist hotspots were identified. Some preliminary proposals were also discussed. Through the 18 district offices, we will collect views from the community and then finalize the implementation schedule of the selected projects within 6 months. I thank members for the views on promoting the development of tourist hotspots, for example, identifying characteristic tourism resources and enhance the linkages between the hotspots and encourage tourists to stay for a few nights in Hong Kong. There are also views about developing rural tourism and making good use of our coastal and rural resources to develop coastal tourism, using outlying islands to develop outlying island tourism, and also developing tourism hotspots in rural areas. The working group will engage in discussion with these stakeholders. I urge members to support the motion on thanks.
Deputy Financial Secretary. Deputy President, I'm deeply grateful to members who spoke. They raised valuable points and expressed support for the government's work. I will now comment on a few areas: developing the low-altitude economy, mega-event economy, Northern Metropolis, and tackling subdivided units. First, developing a low-altitude economy. Low-altitude economy has enormous potential for efficiency gains in logistics and spurring industrial development. Given this emerging sector will be enterprising in overcoming technological and safety management issues, we will work with business and the academia on this. Those who know business best is the business sector. The academia has also played an active part. On the regulatory sandbox, we will be actively promoting pilot projects for the low-altitude economy. With swift approval, we hope that some project can get started within the first half of next year. Once the scheme was launched, many organizations indicated an interest. On our rules and regulations, we will take a phased approach to removing or reforming the rules. Now, as a first step, for planes weighing 25 kilograms or lower, we will be taking a new approach under CAP 448G. In the long run, we will be exploring new laws for the low-altitude economy. On the mega-event economy, previously at the Central Harbourfront event space, we had the wine and dine. There were many people. We had both footfall and receipts. I want to point out that the mega-event economy has way more than just economic benefits for Hong Kong. Having different mega-events can show the world that Hong Kong is a free, open city with cultural essence that will lead to more positive visibility of Hong Kong globally. This can also tell people the true picture of Hong Kong. Given these tangible and intangible benefits, they are of great strategic value given the geopolitical situation. Third, the Northern Metropolis. The NM will be the new growth engine for Hong Kong's economy. It will also be the main source of land for Hong Kong. In the next 10 years, the Northern Metropolis will be able to provide 1,700 hectares of spade-ready sites. That's nearly 60% of the newly available spade-ready sites. The government will maintain fiscal prudence. We will move fast with the works related to the NM. The NM has entered the maturity phase. In the next 10 years, there will be more than 210,000 housing units for move-in. There will also be more than 10 million square meters in GFA for economic purposes. With more transport projects to be completed, we will have this dual growth engine model and become an international I&T center. We will work with market players in moving fast with the Northern Metropolis project. This is not just about taking pressure off public finance. This is also about leveraging market forces. There will be a variety of ways for businesses to get involved, including bond issuance, and in situ exchange. The Development Bureau has found 3 pilot sites, each 10 to 20 hectares in size. By the end of this year, we will start the market sounding exercises. The government will also explore the idea of a pilot industrial park to be run by a company set up and led by the company. In the first quarter next year, we will be announcing the proposal. Finally, tackling substandard subdivided units. On December the 2nd, my team and I will brief the panel on housing on the plan, and then we will have 2 months of public consultations. I want to discuss 2 points here. First, with our efforts over the years, we now have enough confidence for us to phase out substandard subdivided units, a long-standing problem. Now, along with light public housing, total public housing supply in the next 5 years will be 189,000 units. That's 35,000 units per year. Over the past 10 years, we only managed to build 15,000 units. So now we're seeing a huge increase. 60% of current SDU residents qualify for public rental housing. If we can continue to boost quantity and speed in building public housing, more SDU residents can move into PRH flats. The demand for SDUs will gradually fall. Second, we will stick to this people-centric and orderly approach. This means not slashing the supply of SDUs overnight. 2/3 of the SDUs on the market can meet the standards of basic housing units without major renovations. Now, for the remaining 1/3, as long as works are performed, they can meet the new standards. The system we propose is that new basic housing units will become available. On the one hand, demand for SDUs will fall. And then at the same time, there will be no plunge in the supply of SDUs. In the end, it is possible to get rid of substandard SDUs. We can achieve that. I so submit. I urge members to support the 2024 policy address.
Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism. Deputy President, I thank members for the invaluable views on promoting the integrated development of culture, sports and tourism and fostering economic diversification. We carefully considered your suggestions and comments, and we will further our discussion in future meetings. In the interest of time, I will now respond to the 3 areas: culture, sports and tourism. The current term of government established the Culture, Sports and Tourism Bureau, CSTB, to drive the integrated development of culture, creative industries, sports and tourism. We're committed to deepening institutional reform, improving policies on culture, sports and tourism, and advancing our role as an East-Missouri Center for International Cultural Exchange and strengthen our cultural confidence. We established the Chinese Culture Promotion Office to promote Chinese culture and patriotic education at different levels. We plan for the construction of a museum to showcase the development and achievement of our country. We set up a Chinese Culture Experience Center. We hold an annual Chinese Culture Festival. We also subsidize film industry to produce films with Chinese cultural elements. The blueprint for arts and culture and creative industries development will be promulgated shortly. It sets out a clear vision so that all stakeholders will strive towards a common goal of fostering arts, culture, and creative industries and bolster our status as an international center for cultural exchange. The Hong Kong Fashion Fest will be held on the 20th of November, and this will surely drive the development of tourism and other industries. It will attract both local and international participation and help develop Hong Kong into a fashion design hub in Asia. West Kowloon Cultural District, WKCD, will take a leading role in establishing an industry chain for the arts, culture, and creative industry in Hong Kong and contribute to the overall economic growth through enhancing financial sustainability. On sports, in recent years, our athletes have achieved outstanding results in international competitions. We'll enhance training and support for elite athletes and coaches. For example, we'll review the direct financial support for athletes, enhance the training system, develop sports medicine and sports science. We'll also explore the feasibility of a standardized coaches accreditation system. SFNOC will conclude its review on the governance and operation of national sports associations. They have completed this review. Recommendations will be made to ensure the operational effectiveness and the governance of NSA so that athletes can realize their potential in a fair and professional environment. The Kai Tak Sports Park is the largest sports infrastructure in Hong Kong history. While promoting sports, it drives the development of leisure, entertainment, tourism industries, as well as the mega event economy. It is an ideal destination for local and international major sports and entertainment events, thereby raising Hong Kong's profile as an events capital. We're going to hold a series of test events and drills for the full commissioning of the park in the first quarter of next year. In the coming year, Hong Kong, together with Guangdong and Macau, will co-host the 15th National Games and the 12th National Games for persons with disabilities and the 9th National Special Olympic Games in 2025. We're working closely with the relevant bureaus and departments to press ahead with the preparation so that the Games could be organized successfully. We'll also step up local and external publicity to attract more visitors to come and watch the Games. On tourism, we'll publish the development blueprint for Hong Kong's tourism industry 2.0 to expedite industry upgrade and implement tourism is everywhere in Hong Kong. We'll make full use of Hong Kong's unique and rich tourism resources, including 1,180 kilometers of coastline and 263 islands, to promote Hong Kong's tourism development. For example, we promote panda tourism, horse racing tourism, and gourmet tourism to drive a citywide panda craze and allow tourists to taste Hong Kong's signature cuisine. We'll also promote eco-tourism in shuttlecock as well as yacht tourism. We will continue to implement creative tourism signature projects, and we will also adopt innovation so as to bolster our status as an international tourism hub and develop Hong Kong into a world-class premier tourism destination. Preston, as chief executive, said a few days ago, the sector is committed and capable of driving the upgrading and transformation of tourism in Hong Kong. We'll expand the tourism ecosystem and enhance our appeal for tourists. We'll continue to work with the sector in embracing changes and contributing to economic growth. Preston members, CSTB has always been committed to promoting the integrated development of culture, sports and tourism. We will develop unique cultural events to appeal to tourists so as to shape tourism with cultural activities and promote culture through tourism. We'll continue to enhance our status as a center for major international sports events so as to raise our profile. Also I urge members to support the motion.
Secretary for Transport and Logistics. Deputy President, I thank members for their views on the policies on transport. I will speak on how the government will promote construction of transport infrastructure, transport study, as well as the development plan for transport infrastructure in the Northern Metropolis. Now, on transport infrastructure, the government will actively take forward these strategic infrastructure projects according to the major transport infrastructure development blueprints, so as to meet Hong Kong's transport and logistics needs up to and beyond 2046, pursuant to the infrastructure-led planning principles and create capacity for Hong Kong. On local rail projects, we will continue to take forward the projects in an orderly manner, including the Tung Shung Line Extension, Oyster Bay Station, Tuen Mun South Extension, Kudung Station, and Hong Shui Kiu Station projects. These projects will be completed from 2027 onwards. The Developments Bureau has invited the MTRCL to submit a proposal for the Pak Shek Kok Station, with a view to commissioning the station by 2033. Besides, the government will firm up the technical scheme for the South Island Line West by the end of this year to enhance the transport capacity, technical feasibility, and cost effectiveness of the project. On road projects, we will submit a funding proposal to the Finance Committee soon to commence the investigation study for the Northern Metropolis Highway. We will press ahead with the two remaining projects of Route 6, namely the Central Kowloon Route and Trunk Road T2 and Cha Kwa Ling Tunnel, for full commissioning in 2026. Also, we are taking forward the 3 smart and green mass transit system projects at full steam for their early completion. In relation to the projects in Kai Tak and East Kowloon, 30 and 35 expressions of interest were received. We will begin tendering in 2025 and 6. Now, about the Hong Shui Kiu Ha Chun project, we will invite expression of interest for the projects by the end of this year and strive to begin the tender process in 2026. On traffic and transport strategy study, apart from hardware support such as transport infrastructure, in order to tie in with economic and social developments and enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness, the Transport Department is conducting the traffic and transport strategy study to map out a transport strategy blueprint for Hong Kong by 2025, so that the overall transport system in Hong Kong will continue to be reliable, safe, smart, environmentally friendly, and highly efficient. On Northern Metropolis, we are actively taking forward a series of projects recommended under the Transport Infrastructure Blueprint in accordance with the latest planning of the Northern Metropolis to enhance the transport infrastructure network in the area. For railways, we will construct an east-west railway backbone for the Northern Metropolis, comprising the NOL Main Line and Spur Line, NOL Eastern Extension, as well as the North-East New Territories Line. Together with the existing East Rail Line and Two Mile Line, they will form a railway loop to unleash development potential of the Northern Metropolis. The construction of the NOL Main Line is expected to commence next year for completion in 2034. We are also pressing ahead with the cross-boundary railway projects, among which the first stage and second stage studies of the Hong Kong-Shenzhen Western Rail Link Hung Shui Kiu to Qianhai have been completed. The governments of Hong Kong and Shenzhen are now working together to commence the next stage of preparatory work. Meanwhile, we are actively following up on the implementation of the NOL Spur Line projects with Shenzhen authorities and the MTRCL. Consensus have been reached with the Shenzhen authorities. The MTRCL recommends detailed planning and design of the projects in early next year. We have been enhancing Hong Kong's transportation network. We will stay committed to a public transport-oriented policy, actively improve transport services, and meet the public's traveling needs by applying technologies. I so submit. I urge members to support the motion of thanks. Thank you.
Secretary for Housing. Thank you, Deputy President. I thank members who have offered insightful views on the housing initiatives in the Chief Executive's 2024 policy address. The positive response from the public to these initiatives is the greatest encouragement and motivation for us. We are determined and we're capable of addressing the issues with a view to increasing quantity, speed, efficiency, and quality of housing production and improving people's livelihood in pursuit of happiness. Since the announcement of the policy address, there have been extensive discussions about the regulatory system for basic housing unit. As mentioned by Deputy Chief Secretary just now, we will launch a consultation in December this year. We hope members will express their views on the overall direction or specific details of the regulatory system. This will help us finalize the plan so that the bill can be tabled. For example, in terms of bed space apartments and partition rooms, can we have clearer definitions? Regardless of the materials used to divide up the room, be it bricks or otherwise, as long as there are partitions that meet our definition, they will be regarded or they'll be assessed as to whether they are basic housing units. Now, there are also standalone cubicles that are capsule-like that may allow people to stay overnight, and again, they will be regulated as well. We will be going through these specific details in due course. I'd also like to take this opportunity to say this to existing subdivided unit tenants. Your tenancy rights are safeguarded by the tenancy control laws. And if need be, you can approach the rates in the LTD for RVD for assistance. And we are committed to tabling this bill on basic housing unit intellectual as quickly as possible for passage within 2025, so that in a gradual and orderly manner we will be phasing out substandard subdivided units. Since the start of this term of government, the Chief Executive has instructed us to come up with a long term for stabilizing the supply of housing. And with the efforts of the government, we have addressed the problem of backloaded public housing supply. We've started to turn around. We've secured sufficient land to meet the target of 308,000 public housing units over the next 10 years. Together with light public housing, the total supply over the next 5 years will reach 189,000 units, an increase of about 80% comparing to the first 5-year period when this term of government took office. And when we first assumed office, we announced the introduction of 30,000 light public housing units. The main building of the first batch of about 2,100 units in Yaopok Road, Yuen Long, has been completed for intake in the first quarter of next year. The response has been keen. We've so far received 11,900 applications. With the gradual light public housing intake beginning next year, we're confident that the composite waiting time for subsidized rental housing will be reduced to 4.5 years by 2026-27. With the completion of LPH in phases, transitional housing can fully fulfill its role in rendering community support for families living in subdivided units, including those who have been waiting for traditional PRH for less than 3 years, so as to comprehensively cover the full spectrum of those in need. We will allow operators to flexibly adjust the ratio of Category A and B tenants in light of the actual circumstances from the original 80-20 to 50-50, or even to 20-80 under special circumstances. So far, 12 projects have been given approval to adjust this tenant ratio. Through steady supply of land for housing and overall increase in public housing supply, the waiting time should improve significantly. On this solid basis, we have more room to increase the proportion of other subsidized self-flats or SSFs in public housing in order to further address the home ownership needs of the public. The Housing Authority will review the public housing projects to be completed in the next decade with an aim to gradually adjust the ratio between PRH and SSF from the current 70-30 to 60-40 within 10 years. The HA will also introduce a series of measures to assist low and middle income families and young people in purchasing subsidized sale flats. For HOS, the Housing Authority will allocate an extra ballot number to young family applicants and one-person applicants below the age of 40 with white form status from the next exercise onwards to increase their chances. For WSM, starting from the next exercise, the number of quotas will be increased by 1,500 to 6,000. All the new quotas will be allocated to young families and single applicants under the age of 40. We believe all these measures will increase the chances for young people to buy SSFs and enable them to plan for a better future. The HA has been combating public rental housing tenancy abuse by adopting a multi-pronged risk-based approach. Over the past 2 years, the number of PRH flats recovered by HA due to tenancy abuse and breach of tenancy agreement adds up to 5,000, equivalent to building a medium-sized housing estate like Chunyang Estate. The results are prominent. We will continue to be proactive for well-off tenants who have residential properties in Hong Kong. We take a zero-tolerance approach. We also work with mainland regulatory authorities in order to obtain information for follow-up action. In order to further ensure rational use of public housing resources and accelerate the circulation of public housing units, the policy address has announced the new direction for well-off tenants policies. We'd like to encourage the upward mobility of people along the housing ladder, and will consider revising the ratio between green form and white formers in respect of HOS flats from 40 to 60 to 50 to 50. We will also be listening to members' views very carefully so that we can strike a balance between tackling problems and abiding by the original intention of public rental housing. As for public housing construction, second generation MIC, or developed in collaboration with local institution NAMI, will be implemented starting next year. This approach can enhance our efficiency so that we can complete one floor of superstructure works in just 4 days. We will also set up a central management platform. We've also selected 10 PRH estates as pilot sites to promote smart management. We'll make use of technology such as IoT sensors, AI analysis, so as to find the culprits of dropping objects from height in order to enhance service quality and management efficiency. There are many housing measures in this year's policy address. We'll continue to carefully listen to views and suggestions so as to do our best in further improving the living environment and enhancing the sense of happiness for the public. I urge members to support the motion.
Secretary for Development. Deputy President, I'm deeply grateful to members for raising valuable points and their words of encouragement. In the years to come, the Development Bureau will go full steam ahead in taking forward the Northern Metropolis project. And for the Kaoyucha Artificial Islands, by the end of this year, we will start the environmental impact assessment of the reclamation, and we will also start the detailed project design. For 3 projects covering 3 large-scale sites of the Northern Metropolis, 3 spots for ecotourism and 3 places for yacht tourism, we will be inviting expressions of interest. Gauging the market views will help us thresh out future tender documents. The clauses will be more realistic. That will show that the government can take the lead, and we can also create favorable market conditions. And starting from the next financial year all the way to 2030, 40, 35, we will have roughly 3,000 hectares of spade-ready sites ready. The basis of this projection is the Hong Kong 2030 Plus towards a planning vision and strategy transcending 2030, released by the Planning Department in October 2021. The preparation of this study was professional, it was rigorous work. We adopted the community's views. The projection was that in the 30 years up to 2048, Hong Kong will need 6,000 hectares of land for housing, industries, infrastructure, and community facilities. To meet this demand, we propose taking a multi-pronged approach. This means the Northern Metropolis, the artificial islands of Kaoyucha, along with other land creation projects, we will create 7,000 hectares of land. We are setting a more ambitious long-term target than what's required in the 2030 study because we need a basis to give us greater confidence to meet unforeseen conditions and also meet Hong Kong's future development in terms of the area of the size of homes and also community facilities. In the next 10 years, we will create 3,000 hectares of spade-ready sites, and that will be a major step towards meeting this long-term goal. The economy slowed in recent years, revenue from land sales fell, but we're taking forward public works projects. Community concerns about affordability are understandable. Despite these challenges, we should not dial down our medium and long-term land creation targets. I cannot stress enough that creating land takes time. Land does not just come on stream overnight. Our task is to come up with new ideas in facing up to our challenges. For each land creation project, we look at the study's findings and the actual circumstances, and then we plan accordingly. On this front, we will keep working with the industry. First, last year, we enacted an ordinance to streamline procedures. That was a major step forward. Much work, however, remains ahead. Our future focus will be on the administrative procedures during the works. The streamlining arrangement will come out in phases next year. Second, on managing construction costs, we're conducting a strategic study on construction costs. Within this year, we will put forward the specific recommendations. Starting from next year, we will be implementing those recommendations. Third, greater market involvement. I proposed a number of plans and tasks a moment ago. Fourth, some projects take many years and massive investments to complete. That calls for timely review and course correction from the government at critical junctures during such projects. For each project, once we're done with the technical assessment and detailed design, the government will have more objective data and facts to work with. We will also consider the financial and economic situations, community needs, and also the situation of people and businesses to be moved. And then we will consider the pace and timetable and financial arrangements. We will let the public know our plans. Once the land is created, more work follows. As the chief executive said, land creation and land supply are two separate matters. When there is little demand, we will adjust how often land is put up for sale. We'll keep the land in reserve. The government will be in full control over when and how to put up land for sale. Finally, I want to point out that planning and developing new areas are not a business. Profitability of land sales is not the only reason for the government to decide whether to go ahead with a new development area. Selling residential and industrial sites will bring in revenue, but the infrastructure from NDAs will bring us benefits in socioeconomic terms other than land sale revenue. Land sale revenue is also subject to market conditions. The government cannot insist on prices that are out of touch with the market. Developers also have to look after their commercial interest and corporate social responsibility. We must move forward with land development. Failure to plan ahead means we will fall behind. We need foresight and stay prepared in creating land. We also have to be mindful of circumstances so that we can make Hong Kong a livable and competitive and sustainable international city, and we can achieve our goals in land development. I so submit. I invite members to support the policy address this year.
Third debate session ends. The Council now proceeds to the fourth session. Members who wish to speak in this session, please press the Request to Speak button.